And we're live. It's 2:32. Oh, sorry about that. 2:32 on a Wednesday afternoon. It's Innovation Fika with Donny, as you know, every Wednesday afternoon, live from Stockholm, Teknikungen 1, KTH Innovation here in Stockholm, always with a live guest and sometimes with a live audience. But in these days of distancing and quiet weeks, we haven't got too many people in the rooms. But anyway, we have people online. So follow me on LinkedIn and Instagram and all of the platforms, Donny S. Ligonis, for a almost daily update on innovation, inspiration, motivation, and other things, ideas. And of course, every Wednesday afternoon, you watch this show, Innovation Fika, with me, Donny, and my guest. And today I am super happy and proud to introduce Anna Millan, from 100 Point Challenge, who not only is the CEO of that, but you were also the company that received one of the 2 Stockholm City Acceleration Scholarships.
Indeed.
This December.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And I should say thank you to you because you were on the jury for that. So much appreciated.
It was my pleasure. It was we had a hard time choosing the winners because there was a lot of good companies that were competing this year. And as information for everybody watching, I can say the city of Stockholm has an innovation scholarship every year that you can apply for. So check out the City of Stockholm's Innovation Scholarship. It's 100,000 kronor to help you move your day forward. And if you have been in the finals of the Innovation Scholarship, you can then apply for the Acceleration Scholarship, which is 250,000 kronor, which helps you accelerate your company. And that is what you received.
Indeed.
So
yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So Anna, welcome to the show. Welcome to this half hour. And let's start by talking about you and the company 100 Point Challenge. What is 100 Point Challenge?
It's a really good question. And so we have had a bit of a transition, I will say. And this is part of what we spoke about when we applied for that acceleration scholarship that you mentioned. And so I think we'll talk a little bit about today about our transition from being a purely physical events company into what we are now, which is a digital SaaS service, as software as a service company. But what do we actually do? We say you can play our games, online games, to transform your teams. And so we create problem-solving games for teams, particularly for distributed, remote and hybrid teams in particular in this new world of work that we find ourselves in post-pandemic. So a good thing to think about is, so what Kahoots has done for trivia for the individual, we want to do for problem solving, but for teams. So this is what we're working with.
So in a nutshell, a team building, team creating, team culture building games.
Precisely.
And you started offline, as you started as an offline company.
Absolutely.
With like adventure-based games.
Offline. We were analog. We branded ourselves as analog.
Yes, it was a thing. And then
yes.
And then enter pandemic.
Yes.
And what happened then? I mean, what could you have foreseen? Nobody could have foreseen what was going to happen.
Yes.
But what was your thinking then? I mean, the whole sort of pivot or persevere or stop or go. What was the thinking then?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of we'd had a really good year in 2019. So we'd started out here just in Stockholm, me and my business partner, Dan, who is our CEO. And we had expanded in 2019 to a few different locations, a few different cities around Europe, and also to Australia, which is my native home. And things were looking really good at the end of 2019. Enter March 2020, I was in Australia on a beach, and my business partner was telling me, oh, things are not looking so good, Anna. It seems like there's something happening here with this sort of virus coming out of China. And very, very quickly, all of our booked revenue basically disappeared overnight. So we had nearly 90% of our revenue for both Q2 and Q3 just disappear. And we are a purely bootstrapped company, which I think is, reasonably unusual, maybe not so much for traditional event style company. We had a little bit of liquidity, which was able to see us through a few months, but we saw very quickly that we needed to do something immediately in order to be able to survive, basically.
Oh, let's put the lights back on. Sorry.
No problems. I'll keep talking. And so what happened when the pandemic happened was that after a little bit of navel gazing, and I think both myself and my business partner independently, both crying in Ica and doing a bit of soul searching, we decided that we would use basically what we had gathered in terms of working with our customers over the last sort of 3 years and come up with a new experience that would see them through into this new sort of digital future. And here we are in the light.
It didn't suddenly get dark in Sweden. We're just having some problem with the lighting here if you're wondering what's going on. But you can probably still see us.
It's quite metaphorical because we were really in the dark at that period of time. And now we're stepping back into the light, so it works.
Yes, it's me trying to add some effect to the story there.
Thank you.
But it's interesting when you're in the position where everything just not only sort of gradually over time, but just suddenly overnight. I had that in 2008 in the venture I was running then. Overnight, the phone stopped ringing. And we were like, what just happened? You know, and it was a...
Did we forget to pay a bill or like
I know,
what happened?
and it was such a weird thing. So how did you sort of reactivate the whole company then?
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I think Dan and I haven't done a full retrospective on this because we've been so busy doing, which I think was one of the secrets to our success, was we realized that we needed to secure revenue quickly. We're not a traditional startup in the sense that we had a lot of runway to deal with. We needed to secure revenue and we had to go back to first principles. We knew our customer base incredibly well and they had a huge need. And so basically we needed to ship product. We needed to ship it really quickly and iterate as much as we could with the market. And so we did this after about, I will say, we probably had a few weeks there of wondering what on earth we were going to do. Should we all just walk away? But we ended up coming up with our first problem-solving game and put it out to market, and our first customer was Microsoft. And so at that point, we sort of think, okay, this has been validated. It gave us the sort of energy that we needed to be able to believe in ourselves, to realize we did have expertise. And although this was a significant pivot from analog to digital, we're still working with the same customers. And so we were able to leverage that expertise to be able to build something now, which is eminently more scalable and much more befitting, I think, our customers and what they really deserve.
That's also another interesting part, because you continued working with the current customer base, but you changed the offer. And then as so it happened, the need had actually become not even different, but also bigger.
Yes, and global.
Because I think that everybody, so in a way, suddenly your market expanded.
It did. It exploded. We went from being very regionally constrained, working, you know, in specific geographies, to we've now had customers from over 60 countries, and we have employees that are based all over the world. And it's a real joy for us to be able to, you know, have this global market that we're now interacting with.
I think that's a lesson to listen to for everybody else out there, is because I think that one of our first initial reactions is, I need to find new customers.
Yes.
I need to find somebody else to sell this something else to.
Yes.
Where instead just, okay, but you know, in Swedish you say dig where you stand.
Yes.
And what do you have? What can you expand on in front of you?
Yes.
Instead of always trying to find something new.
Exactly.
And I think you did that very, very well as well.
Thank you. Yes, it was opportunity born of necessity, but I think that it has opened up to us a much more exciting business case, which we're now building into, and we can see we're really starting to serve those customers that were coming to us for one type of experience with a much more substantial and validated experience that they can take with them into the digital world, which you know we're both really passionate about. Yeah. Particularly what we're looking at now is not just working with problem-solving games, which have the benefit of being agnostic in the sense that there's no sort of culturally central knowledge that's required to participate, which is super important for modern teams, because particularly for distributed teams, you have groups, you know, your tech team is in one country, your IT is in another, you know, these sorts of things. We're bringing together a global world. And so that's why we think problem solving is a great vehicle, because it's all comes down to you know, skills that we have and that we practice in our work environments. And what we've really noticed is that our games, really, we can see this as we're interacting with our customers and watching them engage with our content, are developing soft skills in ways that are really interesting. And one of the biggest ones that we are really excited about is this concept of psychological safety, which, you know, is a bit of a buzzword, I think, particularly in sort of management consulting.
You need to explain that a bit.
I do need to explain that. So basically, there's a lot of research in this area. Most of, like, the most sort of emblematic of this has been done by Google, and they wanted to find out what is the thing that really drives high performance, high innovation in teams, especially in the knowledge economy. And they found that what it actually is not the content that you have access to. It's not, you know, the cake in the fridge or anything like that. What it really, really is this concept of psychological safety. So that feeling of being seen and accepted free to make mistakes, a safe to fail culture, and also somewhere where the most out of the box ideas are accepted. So they found that this was actually one of the most crucial sort of germinatory ideas for creating high performing teams. And what we see with our problem solving games is that this is a perfect vehicle because it is safe to fail, because the only thing that happens is you don't win, right? But also it puts people into a highly pressurized environment where they need to think creatively, they need to use their abstract reasoning. And this really is a great sort of playground for this concept. And so we're building into now a new tool which is going to be able to give managers, team leads, the ability to assess and monitor the psychological safety of their teams and actually generate real-time metrics in relation to this so that they can, inform how their teams work.
Which is interesting as well, because I know that you talk about it in a team building perspective, but me having worked with innovation and innovation processes and the fundamentals of an innovative company being the psychological safety of not only daring but also wanting to put your hand up and say, I have this crazy idea, not being laughed at, maybe laughed with, but being in an environment where you feel safe. The safety aspect, we cannot underestimate that.
No.
For team building, for mental well-being, for innovation as well. I think it's super important. And that's, I think that is really, it's key.
Exactly. I mean, they talk about the Industrial Revolution, occupational health and safety was important to that sort of style. Now that we have a knowledge economy and that we have knowledge workers, it's really this concept of psychological safety that is crucial to, your success, I think. And I would attribute that feeling to being why Dan and I were able to pivot in the way that we did, because fundamentally we knew that no idea was too crazy to try and solve this problem. And I really think that we have experienced this both as a company and also alongside our customers. Yeah.
So the question that obviously arises then, now you are how many people?
We are 4, and we have about 16 people working with us around the world doing our service delivery. We also have a technology partner in the Ukraine. So yeah, we're still small, we're still growing.
Yeah, but you're 20-ish kind of people in some kind of,
Yeah.
Do you use your own tools?
We do, and our poor staff members and I should say friends and family are the test cases. Obviously, we have to put these games to a lot of really rigorous testing because it's really hard to design a game for groups of people from all around the world so that they will find it challenging enough that it's interesting and engaging, but that they're not going to be completely defeated by it and think it was a terrible experience, because that's the opposite of what we're wanting to do. We want people to feel like they're gaining momentum. And so we put a lot of effort into testing and iterating, and we use this with our staff members. So yes, we do try to. Of course, we're not perfect, but yes.
A question here from Ali. Where can I find your service? Amazing job, by the way. Thank you, Ali.
So much.
Thank you, Ali, for saying so. And I think I actually have a banner for that with the web address 100pointchallenge.com, right?
Exactly.
So, and this is okay. This is the question I shouldn't ask, but I'll do it anyway because it's live and I can. No. This is interesting though, because you were talking about the problem-solving games being this wonderful lowest common denominator of that everybody, and you said that one problem is the very cultural, specific games.
Yes.
Can you give me any? I'm not going to say bad examples, but can you give me any examples of things that have a risk of not working as well as something like the problem-solving game, just so we understand what we're talking about?
Yes, exactly. I think anything that relies on trivia, really, because you'd be surprised how many sort of concepts we think are common knowledge are not so when you're working with cross-cultural teams. And we've had the benefit of working with a really wonderful organizational psychologist who's helping us design some of these activities, and she specializes in cross-cultural communication. And she really has emphasized how isolating the experience can be of 60% of the people in your team understanding a reference and being on the one that doesn't. And so I think that this is really important. Avoiding trivia as much as you can. I think we can do better. And that using something that also has the benefit of developing our brains. Like, this is great to be problem solving. It's something that translates to any work context is where we should be leading.
And I can, again, resonating with my own thoughts on what you were talking about here. When I work with companies and we talk about creativity and we talk about innovation, and we usually say that, humor is a good thing because if you can get people laughing, they can relax, and it's, it's a fun environment. But humor is also a very double-edged sword when it comes to like trivia, fun questions that are referencing something super specific or esoteric that nobody else knows about.
Exactly.
And you have half of the crowd going, I don't know.
Exactly.
Or you have this. It's always a guy doing all of these sports references.
You said that, not me.
But all of these sports references.
Yes.
It's like it's like like they say in soccer, blah 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 blah. Everybody's going, what do you mean?
Or the disgustingly overused trope in this space of the Russian spy, for example, or dealing with, we're gonna crack a bomb or something. These sorts of we really try to do better than this, I think, and go above for something that's a little bit more intellectual, because I think this is what people crave, something that's engaging and accessible, that's agnostic. I mean, we deal with a lot of companies that even using the word Christmas, for example, in some sort of activity is difficult, because they really have been considering, to their credit, how this translates to the different people coming from different backgrounds.
Well, it depends who you're working with.
Absolutely.
I mean, you have to know your people. That's step number one.
Yes.
And I think that in any kind of team building effort, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because you're the expert here, you have to know who you are team building.
Yes.
And you cannot just base it on your own either beliefs or self, or you have to understand who you're working with. That's the step one.
Yes, and when you don't have that opportunity, which does happen because we deal with huge groups where you don't know who you're dealing with, make it safe.
Make it safe.
Make it safe. That is the most important thing you can do.
Yeah.
Is make it safe and accessible, and just have that at the forefront of your decision making when you're choosing what type of activity to do.
So I know that a number of people watching here, because I know that they were going to watch, are running startups of their own.
Yes.
And they're struggling with a distributed team that they've never met in real life.
Yes.
Any tips and tricks you can give them of here's something super simple to try? Anything we can, how do they get started with this?
I think that the most important thing that you can do is something that's participatory. So where people have to contribute something as opposed to passively consuming or sitting there and just answering a few different quizzes, something that changes the way that you do that, and something that is repeatable, because this is something that we see that is incredibly important. This is not a once and done type experience.
So not just once a year?
Unfortunately not, although, you can have, there are different types, but I think you should be selecting something that's short, sharp, and repeatable. And that's, again, why we've gone with problem-solving games. And we have a lot of short-form activities that sort of are designed to be played in 15 minutes, quick meeting energizer. We get together, we scatter the teams, we get together, we solve these problems, and then we solve our real problems. So I think that this is,
Another one here from, let's see, it was exactly, Donny. Thank you. I don't know what it was exactly about, but thank you.
All of it.
I nailed it. Thank you so much. Don't thank me. I'm just the catalyst here for the big knowledge here. Okay, so that was some examples of how to get going with it, and not just once a year. That's another thing that repeatedly, don't just go use. Pre-pandemic, it was like sort of, let's go on a conference once per year, and then we do this creative thing, and everybody's creative, and we do this team building effort, and then you go back to the office, and then you spend 364 days working and expect it to sort of last.
Yes, and I think that one thing that is also really important when you're designing these sorts of experiences for different groups is thinking about whether you want the team building notion to be implicit or explicit. And by implicit, I mean where the team building sort of aims and motivations.
Let's team build, that kind of thing.
We're all very cynical, I think, in these days, and that it makes us uncomfortable. You're going to immediately get a lot of disengagement as soon as you talk about team building. And so that's why we talk about games. Gamification is wonderful in this sense. Really, you should be having so much fun you don't realize that you're team building. That's the type of experience.
It's implicit rather than explicit.
This is powerful, exactly. But explicit also has its place, and I think what's important is to separate the two. So where you have this experiential aspect shouldn't be framed in terms of team building. You should just be in there doing. But you have these priming experiences, so where you might talk about, okay, I want you to think about this concept, like let's use psychological safety as the example, whilst we're playing this game, and priming them to have that sort of framework, go in, have the experience, and then reflect. So you bookend this sort of experiential experience with something that's more explicit. And I think that this is a really good way to structure these.
A question here from Yaskol as well. A good question here. Do you have any startup package with a list of team activities? I mean, do you have any sort of any specific sort of, if you're a startup, a small team, this is a good.
I mean, we have a lot of different experiences that will suit a startup team in particular. And like, it doesn't matter how small the teams are, you can play our games. And what we've really done is created, the reason why we've got software as a service is because it makes it incredibly accessible. And so these are all activities that you can run yourself using the platform, which is really intuitive and they're highly repeatable. There's a whole library of experiences on there that you can get access to. So yes, we do have this.
And of course, connect with Anna on LinkedIn as well.
Absolutely.
Anna Millan, 100 Point Channel on LinkedIn.
Yes.
And, you know, accessible. We're all accessible. So, yeah. Time flies when you're having fun. I mean, this is just a half an hour coffee break, everyone. And we have to end with the top 3 tips from our dear guest as well. So this week we have, here we go. And let's take away the banner. Hang on a minute. There we go. That's easy to see there. So we have Anna Millan's top 3 tips.
Yes.
And now we're talking specifically about team building
and innovation.
As the subject was team building in a digital world, right?
Yes.
So top 3 tips. Tip number 1, which I think you touched upon briefly recently, was innovation. Safety first. What do you mean by that? Safety first.
It's what I've said before. And as I was saying, you know, this transition from occupational health and safety, which was so important in the sort of early 90s and these sorts of things, psychological safety. If there's one thing that you can take away from today and what we're trying to do is that the safety and the sense of feeling valued and being able to contribute to your team is the primary lever that you can pull on to be able to create an innovative team. So that is the first thing you should be thinking about with any team building experience is how do I make it safe?
And it's creativity.
Yes.
It's mental well-being.
Yes.
It's team building and the sense of being included.
Exactly.
It all goes into that.
Exactly.
Psychological safety. Thank you. Very good. And tip number 2, keep it on a level playing field.
So this is what I was saying about making sure that things are accessible, and it feeds into this concept of psychological safety, but it's really about just ensuring that, for example, what we see a lot at the moment is hybrid teams. So we've got some people that are co-located in an office and other people are joining remotely. What we recommend in that scenario is that often people say it makes sense at a practical level. We'll have the people who are co-located being on the same team, dealing with the experience, and we'll have the people who are remote doing it separately. We say don't do that at all. It's not a level playing field, because what really we see time and time again is the people who are joining remotely feel excluded. So in fact, instead of having some co-located and some remote, everybody goes remote. It doesn't matter if the people who are in the office are required to scatter around your office or whatever this is. It's really important to make sure that everybody's point of access is the same. I think that this is, really important.
That is such a good point, because even when we're doing conferences here and we are hybrid, we find that if everybody sits remote, it actually, it creates a better, because level playing field.
Level playing field. Yeah.
Brilliant. You're a genius. No, but I mean, it's the easy things like this that makes the big difference.
It really does.
So it sounded like I was making a joke, but I'm not. I'm super serious here.
Yes.
Let's see. Let's see. We'll come back to your question there, Ali. We will go back to the 3rd tip from Anna Millan. Tip number 3, let's find it here as well. Tip number 3 is, I love this one. When in doubt, go back to 1 and 2.
Absolutely. And you've paraphrased this for me very well, because my explanation of this was much longer. It's basically, if you don't know what to do, and when we were faced with basically our entire industry having been decimated overnight, what we did that I think enabled us to succeed was we went back to first principles. And what are those first principles are for you? So you might get taught this in business school, but actually it's what those business principles are for you. For us, we were a bootstrapped company that had liquidity for a certain period of time. What we knew we needed to do was ship product, and we knew that we had the expertise within our segment to do so. And so we did it. We had to accept that maybe our first iteration wasn't going to be the thing that we loved and we wanted to go out into the world with, but we needed to ship, we needed to do. And so I think this is really important. What is the next best decision that you can make when you're faced with adversity? Just make that decision and the rest will flow.
Yeah. Indeed, and that actually leads us back to the first question here that we got from Ali. We'll take away thank you for the top 3 tips, by the way. Very good ones, all of them. And we had one more question from Ali here. That was, here you go. How did you guys manage the pivot from analog to digital in such a short time period? Because I mean, you were talking
Weeks, yes.
Weeks here.
It was probably about 6 weeks in the period that we managed to get our first digital product. And again, this is focusing on first principles in the sense that we had to ship. And so we weren't going to have a platform that was built, that was bespoke, which we do now have, thankfully. We weren't going to have that. So how could we cobble this together with the resources that we had, but focusing really on content? And what's amazing, I think, about the digital world that we exist in is that there are so many tools for neither Dan or I have any technical background whatsoever. I'm a lawyer, he's a health economist. We have no business building a technology company, but we are, and it's because you can. I think that the tools are available to be able to do these sorts of things. Obviously, you get help where you can, but the tools out there exist, and it's really about knowing that you need to do rather than ruminate.
Yeah, and I mean, I can just add a comment as well to the audience here is that, yes, there's a reason they won the 250,000 kroners, okay? There's a reason. And one of those reasons was their enormous ability to pivot in a world turned upside down. So, all the credit to you there.
Thank you.
Let's see, from Robin here, fantastic success story, great tips. Definitely going to try it out with my distributor team. Thank you both.
Thank you, Robin.
And then, of course, one more from Robin here. Were there any surprising lessons learned from the analog business that you've been able to include in the digital product? That was a good question.
That is a very good question. It was that the experience is king, I think. It doesn't matter what sort of, we tend to get distracted by technology and how something is delivered. I think when you're actually talking about team building, the content that you're delivering and the experience is the most important thing to focus on. The rest of it will follow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So many good key words here, but ship it.
Ship it.
Ship it. Just get it out the door. It does,
Yes.
it's not about perfection.
Yes.
It's good enough.
Yes.
Just get it out the door and get something going.
Yes.
And build on that. I think that is such an important lesson. And I will end here with Ali's comment, truly awesome.
Thank you, Ali.
Thank you,
so
Ali.
much.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for
very
being here.
much.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. It's Innovation Fika, Wednesday afternoon, 2:30, every Wednesday with Donny, and equally, always an incredible guest. Anna, thank you so much for being with me today. And we'll see you all online. Hook up with us online. Check out Anna on LinkedIn.
Yes.
Super accessible. Check out the webpage, 100pointchallenge.com. I'll see you all next week, and good luck in the future.
Thank you very much.